What's going on for Victims and Villains? My name is Josh, and today we're talking about Saw X. Saw X is the 10th installment into the Saw franchise. This movie is both a sequel to the original 2004 cult classic and its 2005 sequel, Saw 2. This movie sees John Kramer, played by Tobin Bell, seek after an experimental surgery in Mexico, only to find himself on a path of revenge. As I was starting to get into the genre of horror, Saw was slowly starting to build its empire. This was really one of the first film franchises I ever sunk my teeth into. I watched all 9 films in anticipation for this one. I love this franchise, and I'm going to be approaching this film as a franchise fan. That said, with Saw X, I think this is a great jumping on point to any newcomer to the series. Obviously, a franchise like Saw is most known for its traps, and while those traps do exist here, this brings the franchise into brand new territory that it is much needed. And I think in that regards, Saw X definitely succeeds where we see other standalone entries into this franchise, like the Jigsaw prequel that we got a few years ago, like the Chris Rock standalone film Spiral that we got a couple years ago. While really had fun with those two sequels, I think this is the perfect entry point into this franchise. It's always one of those franchises that do the same exact thing. It's episodic and it's continuously building upon the lore, with the exception of Spiral from a couple years ago. This film has really kind of followed the same blueprint. And so to say that there are new things that they do in this film that they've never done in any film before really says a lot about the capability of Saw X. Second, this movie pushes almost 2 hours, and this is the first time that we've also gotten a mid-credit scene. As you can tell, that they are continuously placing the idea for future sequels to this and the continued expansion of the lore. So stay tuned after the credits because there is something. For one, this film is international. For the first time in 10 films, this film takes place outside of the US borders, which is really exciting and really awesome to see because it brings a really fresh perspective for not only the John Kramer and Amanda characters, but also at the same time really reinvigorates this franchise. Up to this point, most Saw entries have clocked in about 90 minutes. This one pushes almost a few minutes shy of the 2 hour mark. And the longest up to this point has been part 3 at a whopping 100 minutes. The reason that I think this one is allowed to have that 2 hours, A, it never feels like 2 hours, but B, this film really humanizes both John and Amanda. Both of them have just been kind of these monster figures and really divisive. You've gotten glimpses here and there, but this one really humanizes both of those characters. Not only stating that, but this brings the franchise into really new territories. And again, it provides an emotional depth that we've never seen Saul really do, and provides a really refreshing take on these characters and this mythology. This has a lot of familiarity if you are a fan of the franchise, but also at the same time, there's a lot that is detached about this film that you don't need to have seen Saw. You don't need to have to seen Saw 3 or 2 or 5. This film stands completely on its own really well. His performance, his emotional depth in is just absolutely exceptional. The chemistry and the development of the relationship between him and Shawnee Smith's Amanda is just such a treat to actually watch in this. And above all, and probably most important, what sets Saw X apart from its other sequels and prequels is the fact that this movie has an emotional depth and capability that every other film every other entry into this film, aside from the first film, have failed to really deliver. When I say that this franchise really became about the traps and the creativity with the gags, I sincerely mean that. It's part of one of the reasons that I really love this franchise. I love it for its capability. I love it for its episodic. But the reason that I think Saw X is probably the best entry we've gotten since the original Saw is because of this emotional depth that the story provides and the breathing room that the storytellers and the narrative is allowed to have. And with that comes a franchise best performance from Tobin Bell. Tobin has been attached to this film franchise since 2004, since the very first film, and has been involved to some capacity, with the exception of Chris Rock's standalone Spiral from a couple years ago. But he's always been a really vital part of this franchise, and he's always done really good. But this is the best performance that he's given in 10 films. I really liked how personal and intimate this film feels. Like I said, this film just feels really refreshing to have in a Saw franchise. For the most part in this franchise, what we've seen take place has been largely solo adventures, kind of going through their own character journeys about what they've done wrong. And with entries like Saw 2 and Saw 5, we've seen ensemble pieces. This one definitely has the personal touch of the third entry, but it also builds and it gives us our best ensemble, outpacing even Saw 2. Understanding that no life is going to throw at you. If you guys have wondered why this channel has been so quiet aside from our stream and podcast this month, it is because I have been going through some of my own mental health stuff. Tobin Bell is great in this movie. Shawnee Smith's great in this movie. The traps are bloody, they're gory, they're exceptionally well thought out. And this being such a personal film and such an intimate narrative, like I said, this one really stands out in the grand scheme of the series. For this one and for the majority of the series, dealing with the mental health of death or circumstances changing that really kind of shake us to the core. I would probably say my only complaint about this movie does come from some of the pacing. Pacing in the third act, after kind of some of the big twists and turns have been revealed before the ultimate twist and turn, as the movie has become famous for, it does have a little bit of a slower edge to it, and there are definite parts that kind of drag, and there are parts of it that are predictable, but it is a very minor complaint and a very minor part of the film as well. So that's gonna do it for us. Make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button. We're gonna have a couple more movie reviews out this weekend, and we're gonna start unloading our genre blast coverage in the next few weeks. So until next time, stay classy. And it's caused me to really flip my perspective, and that's one of the things that I think Saw films do really well, is that they challenge the viewers and the people, as twisted as it sounds, in the traps, to also really flip their perspectives and focus on the good in life. And for as twisted as it might seem, one of the things that I have always really loved and respected about Saw as a franchise is this theme of cherishing your life and really living life to its fullest, but also at the same time looking for the best in life. I'm probably butchering the gospel according to John Kramer, but bottom line, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self harm, or depression, please click the links in the show notes below to check out our mental health resource library. So, if you guys have seen Saw X, what did you guys think? And comment below. Make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button, because later this weekend I am going to be doing my top 10 Saw list. So, make sure that you guys hit that below. But let's talk about mental health. I would say overall, this film is paced really well. I thought that this movie, having the first act be kind of a little bit of a slower build, it definitely has a slower burn approach to it. But in the process of that slow burn, really humanizes John and allows him to kind of be seen in a way that other entries into the series haven't been able to do. They've always kind of painted him as a monster because, like I said, past that first film, a large portion of these films, people are just coming for the traps. I've been having to really flip my own perspective on what is good and what matters and all of the positive things that have come up in the last few weeks despite this tornado of just utter crap I feel like has been placed on my doorstep. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we'll take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're reviewing, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. Overall, I'm ready to run this through the Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Saw X a 4 out of 5. I think this is probably, like I said, easily the best sequel and best prequel that we have gotten. It's definitely the best standalone film that we've ever gotten. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for this. I really think that what they're doing, the strategy now, like I said, I'm a huge fan of this series, but the strategy of kind of holding things out for a few years and really taking the time to develop the story has worked in their favor. I think this kind of has been getting progressively better. I thought Jigsaw was an alright prequel. I thought Spiral was a better build upon that, and I definitely think that this writing duo have written the last two standalones definitely hit an all-time high with this film.